Put your phone away. We are live. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Let me tell you what a shit show this has been.
I broke Ben's finger.
She broke my finger. Yeah. I usually don't swear on this, but I had to. Welcome to Our Happy Divorce live stream. Kids in divorce from their own words. My name is Ben Helfand. This is my ex-wife.
Who just broke his finger.
Who just smashed. So, first of all, Kate Anthony called at the last minute, and her mom's cat died?
It's time.
So today. So our thoughts and prayers are with the kitty. And then what else happened? All this stuff. We were lucky to have our
I think I should just show this picture. How do I show this picture?
Put it
Look
in the
what I
camera.
just found. Look at this.
Is that Asher's?
So blurry.
No, that's me.
Look at Ben's driver's
is it
license
really?
photo. Holy crap.
Thank God the autofocus isn't picking it up. But anyways, we are lucky to have, like always, Susan Guthrie, and as well as a last-minute replacement, but not a replacement, a person who's joined us before. And first of all, hi, Susan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So Susan, who did we have to scramble for at the last minute to get with us this evening?
Well, I reached out to our favorite guest who's been on two other times before, or one of our favorite guests who's been on two other times before, so this makes it her third appearance. We have Gabrielle Hartley. I don't know why.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
Hold on, I have there we go. Hi, Gab.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. How are you? I have completely messed this whole thing up today, and more so than not. So let me just do that, and we can all be together there. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. And we usually have many technical difficulties before, but it seemed extra
It's not
technical.
we, it's you.
What are you doing? You're sitting there
Just
you sit there on your phone and talk.
I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
And then what we're really excited about tonight, though, is part one.
Dun, 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 dun.
We always talk about our son and how he was the reason why Nikki and I are where we are 13 years later, and what an inspiration he is, and you know the motivation behind Our Happy Divorce and the foundation of it. He is also a co-author, four co's, because Nikki, Nadia, and Chad also
would
have
be
their
the
own
fifth.
chat.
He would be
He'd be the fifth co-author. So we have many authors, but he is. If you haven't read our book yet, he is. Wraps it up in a bow at the end, and we are so lucky to have our son, one Mr. Asher DeBartolo Helfand.
Where's
Good.
the claps? Oh, you go long claps.
So, Asher, before we get to it, I'm your favorite parent, right? Let's just get that over with. Sure. Okay.
No.
Now that we got that out of the way.
No.
I think for Mr. Helfand's attorney, I would advise him not to answer that question.
Yeah, that's
Do
true.
not answer that
It
question.
looks like he is Nikki on our name, so it's okay.
Exactly. So one of the reasons we wanted to do this was obviously we know how much divorce affects everybody, but the kids are what really is Nick and my concern, and our son was the main concern, and it's really why we have the relationship we have today. But hearing it in their own words, and despite having had or not to ask questions like who's your favorite and bad questions, I'm going to turn it over to people who really know how to interview people and not try to get who the favorite is when we know who the answer is. But
I didn't say anything.
we have the rock stars Gab and Susan, who I really just want to lead this, and I just have a discussion. So.
Yeah, well, I have to say I am very excited for this conversation. So, Asher, thank you for joining us. Gab will probably agree with me. As divorce attorneys, it's actually completely unknown to us to speak to the children of divorce or of our clients. In fact, in the divorce world for attorneys and judges, it's almost like we don't want to talk to the kids. And it's from a protective stance. We don't want to put the kids in the middle with a question like, which parent is your favorite or something like that. Which parent do you want to live with? But that's why it's such a wonderful thing for us to be able to talk to you. I've actually, your parents' book or the book, all of your book is one of my, it's probably my other favorite. These are my two favorite divorce books. Better Apart by Gabrielle Hartley and Our Happy Divorce is the other. Those are my two favorites. And it was such a joy for me when I read Our Happy Divorce and got to the last chapter to find that you wrote it. And to me, that was the perfect bow on top of a wonderful story. But how did it come about that you ended up writing a chapter in your parents or in this book?
He's like, my parents made me.
Arm twisting, was it?
Maybe. I mean, they did make me, but I don't know. They just basically just had me answer a bunch of questions and write a few things and like about me, and so it was kind of difficult. But
Difficult in which way?
Yeah, what made it difficult?
I don't know. Answering some of the questions that I had to answer in my part, kind of like wasn't as difficult as who's your favorite parent. But,
Asher, when I read, and your parents already know this, although your mom and I haven't spoken, I have messaged with her a bit. My parents also had a happy divorce. They didn't call it that, but they were very proud of how well they navigated the divorce. And I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 70s, but I grew up in the 80s. And my mom and dad were just like a little over the top about how amazing they were as parents. Like, and when I read about you and I read your stuff, I have to say, I mean, I've been a divorce attorney, mediator, and coach for literally 25 years. Hearing your story, it was like you were me. I was like, oh my gosh. I think what I wrote to one of your parents was like, oh my gosh, I am Asher. Asher is me. Like, I felt like, I don't know, it was like pretty magical for me to read your story as a grown woman and as a professional. I felt like really grateful that you wrote it because, nobody wrote the story before me. And the story that I wrote isn't so much a story, but it's a sort of roadmap for people who don't know how to do it. I sort of distilled all the cool things that my parents showed me. And I just want to say thank you to you. It was really amazing for me to read what you wrote and to read, just to hear your perspective.
awesome. That's great to hear.
One thing that we are getting feedback here is we talk a lot about, or we talked a couple years ago, I don't know if you remember when we were fishing in Venice, and you told me that this divorce was hard on you, and all, despite the fact that you, when we were fishing in Venice, and you didn't say it in that many words, but you said, we were talking about just the logistics of divorce and moving, from house to house, and even though it's...
That was before you guys were...
Not in Venice.
9
No.
houses away.
Oh,
no,
right.
yeah, right. And just, so talk about the logistics of, even though your parents get along, like, it sucks.
I mean, I wouldn't say it sucks, because there's still some good things that come out of it, like brother and sister, step parents, kind of, with the brother and sister.
I thought you meant with the step parents.
No, but I mean, I really like back then the only hard part was it was pretty well on our old houses. It was pretty far drive between the two, and then other than that, there was really nothing to complain about.
It was leaving the books at one house and not having them at the other house.
That also.
And I know where are
And
my
not getting
shoes that go to
duplicates
this,
of
and where
everything.
did I get? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's actually something that we hear from a lot of kids, that,
Right.
The burden on them of having to travel between two houses can actually be a bit of a a strain on them. One thing I noted in your chapter is you said originally your parents were doing, and you were only 3, right, Asher, when your parents
Yes.
went into 2 households and you started moving between. You said at first they were doing like a week at a time, but when that became apparent that that was hard for you, they went to shorter time, I think 4 days, and then you'd switch between 2 houses, between the houses.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was. I think around 4. I think.
Mm-hmm. You were 4 years
Yeah.
old and 4.
Yeah.
It's funny because like people are always asking, you know, like, is it hard on you, right? I mean, I remember, right, like people asking,
Right.
and it's like, you know, you're just living your life. Like you're not thinking like, oh, well, if I had alternative life, that like you're just like a kid. You're just like you have your parents, you have your life. You know, I mean, I don't know. Do you have like lots of friends whose parents are divorced or not really?
Yeah.
No.
Question.
No, really, like, not a lot at all.
Just one,
Yeah.
really, right?
One. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like your parents? I mean, I guess you don't want to say this. So to your parents' friends, I want names. No, just kidding. Like, you know, do you have feelings sometimes like of being like different, like or like people view you differently or ask you questions or anything like that?
Good question.
With my friends.
Yeah, like even their parents, you know, like
Yeah.
I mean, I just have a lot of memories of people being like, "You're so," you know, like a lot of comments about my
Right,
parents.
I get a lot of comments with my friends' parents and questions about it, but it's actually like, because I have 2 good friends that have divorced parents,
That's good.
and the questions mostly come from the parents that are still together.
Yeah, of course, because they're like, "Oh my God," right? And so
They're like, hey, if we could do it, maybe if they could do it, maybe we could
Yeah.
do it.
How is this working?
That's really funny. That's really funny. Right.
Kidding.
And like, what kind of questions? Like, do they ask you if it's like confusing? Like, what kinds of things? I don't want to give you leading questions.
They're like, how is it going back like 9 houses apart and like stuff like that, and they'll talk about it. They're like, that's so amazing how your parents can do that and still get along together. Mostly that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, go ahead. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking, the way Asher said that, and I know Ben and Nikki's homes are very close to each other right now. And, when you read the book, one of the things or I think the overriding principle of the book is what's best for Asher, right? Like that mantra is, yeah. And having spoken now to Ben and Nikki repeatedly and on these calls, I mean, I hear them say that what's best for Asher all the time now. It's still the overriding principle in what they do. Did you feel that, Asher, as this was all unfolding? I mean, you were a kid, but did you feel like you were being, sort of a part of why your mom and dad were making some decisions?
Definitely, I definitely do feel it. It wasn't like I asked them to do anything, because I was obviously too young. But I didn't have to ask them to do anything. They just did it out of like, for me, but like, just keep the family together and stuff. But I honestly had no influence on it because I was so young.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, but I think as even a small child, you sort of have that feeling. I mean, you said they didn't, or that the week apart from one parent to the other was actually too long for you. But at 3 or 4, maybe that was hard to, say to them. So that it seems that, they were able to really sort of tune in to your needs at that young age and all along.
Right. They definitely did. They could tell, almost, if it like without me saying anything, they could tell if I was
Cranky.
upset. Yeah, right. About anything, and they just would ask me stuff, and I'd answer them.
We tried to be very open
Right. They were very open.
with you and tried to discuss things with you. So it was like we had tried to have real conversations, even though he was young. So we could just keep the dialogue open. So then when things did start to bother him, we knew that he would feel comfortable talking to us about it.
It's like so amazing that you guys were able to do that. I mean, I know there's a whole world of people that as divorce attorneys we don't ever come in contact with, but you know, Asher, I have to say I didn't know how, like, I always knew my parents were like amazing in that way, but it's not till I worked in court with a judge sitting with hundreds and hundreds of clients, litigants ready to go to trial that I realized, like, oh, like my parents were actually amazing. And that's not to say they were like perfect or that everything's always easy, because it's like life and people are complicated and annoying. But, but you know, I just, you know, your parents certainly didn't bring you on here so that they could have me just tell you how amazing they are. But I'm just going to say they are amazing. And you really,
Yeah, we do.
yeah, right. I got a check in the mail for, you know, you tell
Yeah, exactly.
That's
We
what this is
absolutely
about.
did.
We still screw things up
Everybody
still
does.
screw some things up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, ask my 16-year-olds. I am like the best at screwing things up. He won't tell you
I
now.
think I am too, or I'm the mean one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He looks at his cell phone if he tells me
Yeah,
I'm screwing.
you guys can both get a little mean sometimes.
The funny thing, sorry, we had to pull another audible there and change his camera out because he looked like a really bad Bruce Lee movie. But the one thing Asher doesn't get yet, and this is so it reminds me of my childhood, my parents' divorce, is I knew that my parents didn't talk, right? So I would use one against the other, saying, "Oh well, mom lets me stay out till 2," and Dad'd be like, oh, "Okay, we'll stay out till 2:30."
I can't do that.
But you still
But you
try.
think you can.
But you still try. I mean, that I don't know if that's
You're
just teenage
16.
dumb
My
boys.
kid does that too, and we live in the same house.
Yeah.
I mean,
literally,
it's
I'm
like
how dumb do you think we are?
Pretty dumb. No.
they do.
I literally have to tell him. I said, your mom and I talk all the time.
Too much.
Too much, as he says.
In fact,
so
we might
Susan, I
even
want
talk
to
more
ask you
than
a
they
question
could.
because you brought something up that I just found really fascinating about
funny.
the kids not being brought into the process. And I understand for protection and you don't want to ask them questions for, to put them on the spot. But for in mediation, is there any way that you could see kids being used to talk about? No.
No, I mean, it is really sort of an anathema in the legal profession and around divorce to involve the kids. But that's actually, Nikki said something in response to something Asher said that I thought was really important, because there's actually a movie out there called Split, and it's interviews with children. I think they're 5 to 6 years of age. And there's one very poignant little scene where there's a little boy who says, he remembered mom and dad sitting him down and telling him mom and dad are getting a divorce. And that was the last time they ever spoke to him about what was happening. And he said, later, and he had, the quivering lip and the tears in his eyes when he said, one day dad left and he just didn't come back. And I wonder how much that happens in divorces. Parents steel themselves for that talk, but then they don't let the children know what's happening.
Right.
And Nikki just said, you guys, even though Asher was 3, 4, you had age appropriate conversations with him, but kept him as a part of, the loop of what was happening. It's his life too. And I wonder how many parents actually do that. I suspect not many.
Yeah. Asher, do you remember the time where, I know we talked about the boxes. You remember the boxes. But
Yeah.
Do you remember the conversation that we had with you?
No, I just remember walking in and then seeing boxes.
I'm not really sure. I still
By the
want
way, you just sounded like Donald Trump when you said that. Walking into boxes.
to see boxes. I don't even know how you saw boxes.
Did in your bedroom.
And this is
Moving boxes.
this
like
is what we
U-Haul-
always say,
like
okay?
U-Haul boxes.
And we're not professionals, but he was 3 years old, 3 and a half, and he was so aware of what was going on.
Oh.
And we think as parents sometimes we're getting over on kids or we're pulling. I have this habit of nicotine, and I think I'm getting over the kids when I, chew a gum or put a nick or a jewel or whatever. And it's just like, even my little ones, and we just don't give them enough credit. And I think it just sort of manifests itself in divorce. And we told the story when he came to your
in my room.
yeah.
Yeah, you came in. I don't even know if you remember the story. You probably don't remember the story. You came in. This is when your dad had moved out early on. You had came in our room, and you said, "Where did Daddy sleep last night?" Because the bed wasn't like ruffled up like two people had slept in it.
Really?
Yeah, and I used to come home I was staying in a hotel. I used to come home before you wake up, and then leave after you went to bed. But you realized
that we were like two fools trying to get one over on you, and you totally
knew.
knew.
A 16-year-old trying to get one over on our parents, right?
Yes, totally like a 16-year-old trying to get one over.
It goes full circle.
Oh yeah.
The Gabrielle, when you talk about your better apart method, and kids, what's the I guess what's the best way of getting parents to realize the damage? I mean, we did this thing. We live in our happy divorce world, and it's.
Sorry, I wanted you to know that we can see us.
Oh wait, can you hear me?
That we can see.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't on. Anyway, so about the effects, or have parents realize really what toxicity they're putting in their kids' bodies, and even if they're better apart and not our happy divorce, but they can come to a spot where they're better off or better apart, right?
So the thing is, a lot of people really struggle with always trying to get the other person to be on that positive team like the two of you are on. And the reality of it is sometimes only you are positive, right? And so if that's the case, you can stay positive by exiting a pointless argument loop, by keeping yourself focused on how you want your child to see you, how you want your child to view what a home environment is like. One thing that I know I've heard lots of my clients say, and I'm sure Susan has a similar experience, where they just wish that the other party would be more agreeable. And, they're like, well, what am I supposed to do? And all that you can really do is take care of your side of the road. And the thing to know is that if your child has one calm, stable home, they're going to be fine, right? There's plenty of kids who have two crazy parents and one calm, stable grandma who they see 2 days a week, and they're still fine. The thing that I would caution parents to do who are getting information, sometimes even from their well-meaning but maybe not very experienced professionals who are very focused on having very few transitions between the households, I believe that it's much more important that you have as little conflict. Like maybe that means you only have one or two transitions and the transitions happen away from the house, which is of course hard to do during COVID.
Yeah.
But the main thing is to mitigate points of conflict. So create a clear pathway forward. So, the old statement, keep it simple, stupid,
Right.
kiss. Kiss all the way through. That's the best way forward.
Like fake it till you make it.
Right.
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, that's what we did.
Or you don't need it.
Because they work.
Right.
Yeah.
In your experience, Susan, I think I'm trying to get this number, but do you have any idea? I mean, obviously it's higher on your end, people who come to mediation who want an amicable divorce, right? They're seeking mediation because it's an alternative to, but with that said, in general, do you think it's over 50% of people when they split up want to at least have the goal of setting out to have an amicable divorce?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say it's much higher than that, at least when it comes to people's children.
Right.
Almost no parent would come in and say they don't want to come to an agreement that's going to be in their children's best interest. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a parent say, no, I don't want to prioritize my children. Sometimes their actions haven't followed through on that, or their decision making hasn't followed through on that, and they've been sidetracked by emotion or the desire to hurt the other parent or something like that. But initially, one of the tools of the trade for mediators, I'll let you in on one of our secrets, is that when we ask people at the beginning of a mediation, what their goals are for mediation, almost always one of them is sure to say, I want what's best for my children. And we all go, hallelujah, because we have our first point of agreement, right?
And also, you might ask them, is there anything you agree on? And they'll say, oh, we both love our kids, or, and you might get an eye roll from one or the other side. But, you also have to remember, it's only a small sliver of everyone getting divorced that might hire a mediator. A lot of people don't have any money. They just do a DIY divorce, and they might need a little bit of help. But what gets all the attention are the salacious stories, right? Not the good stories.
Until Our Happy Divorce came out.
That's
well,
right.
yeah, and it's been we talk about this a lot. We never sat down or never planned on writing a book until like 8-9 years into it, and then all of a sudden we come into this world, and it's still like support groups and people like Gab and Kate and mediators like Susan, who are part of the solution. But it's not really the reality, I guess. I guess we talk a lot about the sea changing and maybe going that route, or going that way. When somebody comes to you, Susan, and they say that we want what's best for the kids, and you guys raise your hands, say hallelujah, praise Jesus. Is there a role for you as a mediator to give tips or advice, or if they want it, where do they go to get the right steps to do what's best for the kids? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right?
Absolutely.
Especially if one of them really isn't.
No. If they say
in
it,
general.
if they say it, like, we want what's best for the kids, we want an amicable divorce. I mean, obviously you can control the mediation, but do you give them suggestions on maybe who to see or coaches? Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we do all of the above depending on what that particular parenting duo needs. But from a very, basic standpoint, as Gabrielle also, and she just, alluded to, we will give them sort of an underlay of information in a neutral fashion, such as what Gab just said about conflict being one of the worst things for children. That is actually one of the the level of conflict between mom and dad is one of the largest indicators for children having difficulties later in life. I always pepper that into the conversation with my mediation clients as we're working through the parenting plan. And it's really, a parenting plan it sounds like a big, formal thing that has to be a certain way. There are certain topics we need to cover. We need to know how decisions are going to be made by the parents about the child's upbringing and their well-being. We need to know who's responsible for the child at all times during the day. But what parents don't realize is that they have a great deal of flexibility to craft something, especially in mediation, that really works best for both of them and, most importantly, for their children or child. And that's what I really, I always start with, what do they see? How do they perceive a good parenting plan for their family? And starting from there. I mean, Gab, where do you start when a family or a couple is ready to start talking about the parenting plan?
Can't hear you.
I think you lost your mic. Did it mute?
Can you hear me now?
You
Yes.
can hear you now.
I don't know why it's
You're like
muted.
me right now.
Can you hear me now?
What it's been.
So first, I always ask where their conversation has gone between the parties before I start to guide them in any direction. I think it's really important that people feel at one with whatever they arrive at together and not feel like they need to go along with some prescribed format, because depending on where you live, there are certain norms that evolve. And then you can start to feel like that's how it has to be. But actually, often you can miss the boat thinking that you have to do something just because everybody else is doing it that way. You need to take into account your temperament, your spouse's or your ex-spouse's temperament, your child's temperament, your job, your child's time constraints, what you've done to date, where do you live, where's your extended friends and family. There's so many things, so many different considerations. So I really first like to figure out where the parties are. And then sometimes it turns out, I also do a lot of collaborative law, which is out of court, kind of a more collaborative process where we're not going to there's no judge involved and there's not really evidentiary hearings or anything. And in those cases, if I'm representing somebody, sometimes you can sort of tell that the person you're representing is not really fully voicing what they want when they say, oh, we've talked about it and she's got custody all the time and I get every other weekend. And so she says that's really good. And I'm like, well, so how do you feel about that? How is that going to impact your child? How is that actually going to impact her? She might just be thinking about child support and not about the quality time she may need. I mean, it's complicated.
Sorry,
He's directing.
I'm directing Asher to get in the right position so that all we see is that big mic, not see that pretty face.
He's hiding.
That's all
Have
me.
you dealt with anything really complicated that you want to talk about?
Yeah. You have anything?
Anything really complicated you want to discuss with us?
So,
Look at the poor
Why are you being so quiet?
no.
You're being awfully quiet.
it's all the bright lights of big
listening.
city. So let me ask you a question. I was watching the interview you did earlier with Shai, and you had said something about the positives, and talk to me about some of the positives of not only your parents getting along, obviously, but the life of two new parents and
Of the divorce?
yeah.
Well, being so close together is one. Easy to go back and forth. Dinners, like family dinners that we all have with all of us together. Step parents, brothers and sisters, 2 Christmases.
Or I've never heard a child say
Just
they
being
didn't like
honest, it's okay.
Christmas.
I'm
Hey.
listing off a bunch of things.
2 Christmas presents. I mean, birthday presents. The whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
A lot.
The other thing you said, because you forgot to say, but I know you always say, is that you have the best of both worlds, really. I mean, in the sense that you get to come to my house and the craziness,
Right?
my house, and then
And the relaxation with the other house. No screaming kids.
and one spotlight, and it's all on you.
One
well,
spot.
that's also a negative.
The spotlight's always on you.
Why? Oh, because you can't get, because Snoopy over here.
Snoopy.
Yeah, no, but
Snoopy.
there's things just like, not that like it's always like a bad thing, but like if one thing in one house, say you and Nadia are really mad at me one day,
Yeah.
I can just go over to the other house.
And normally we're not mad at you if they're mad at you.
Yeah, but it's just like you said, like the best of both worlds. It's 2 different houses, totally different houses.
And you get 4 parents instead of 2.
Right.
That you actually like.
Some
Two
kids
great
might not
I was
think
just
that
gonna
was
say you
good.
actually like your step
Is
parents.
that a
What's-
good thing?
What's that, Susan?
I was going to say some kids might not think that 4 parents was a good thing, but I loved in the book because Asher actually says that in his chapter is that, it's a bonus having 2. I mean, it comes across anyway, Asher, that you really care for and love your bonus parents as well and feel like you are one big family. That's what really comes through in your chapter and in your book. The idea of you all sitting down for dinner once a week, I love it. We don't hear that stuff.
Right. With the 2 bonus parents.
Bonus. It's like a house. You get a bonus room.
Yeah.
It's just like if they weren't like if they were different people, like if they weren't as nice as they were, and as like
They didn't love you as
they
much
didn't
as
love
they
me
do.
yeah, I would not like 2 bonus parents. but since they're great parents too, is the reason why I like having two more parents.
That's again the difference in your experience and my experience, and you know I had these the step monster. I mean, at the end of the day, we butted heads. You know, we were just not. And I don't think it was regardless of what it was. We just were, you know, those two personalities that it was like when Nikki and I were married. You know, it just clashes of personalities, and sometimes they don't, you know, mix. But it
Could
was.
you see us married?
No.
So let me ask you this question: do you ever think like you guys get along so well, and
Like,
you
why
laugh?
aren't you still married?
Has it ever crossed your mind?
Well, I feel like that's one of the reasons why you aren't married, because you guys are better as friends.
There you go.
There you go.
They're apart.
If we had a mic to drop,
Yeah, right. Well, we
Where
can do
is
this.
it, Ben?
Drop.
matter of fact, we have a lot of them.
Like what?
But that says it all. I read somewhere. Oh, I think it was in your interview with Aaron Levine for Hello Divorce, or maybe in the chapter in the book. But you said you haven't ever really had that feeling, Asher, that you wanted your parents to get back together, and that you like your life and your extended family the way that it is.
Well, yeah, and again, it was just like, obviously, if I had no idea of the situation, and you would come up to me and say, would you want your parents to be together or not together? I'd obviously say, I want them to be
Together, right?
But since they make it work so well, and since we have this big family, one family, then I would say, yeah, and they wouldn't get along together either, yeah, then it's a good thing that they're
That is, I mean, that is almost brings tears to my eye, because I mean that is what it is, right? It's 16. His parents have been divorced for 13 years, almost 17, and yet his choice would still be for his parents to be together, right? I mean, and yet it wasn't his choice for us to get married. It wasn't his choice to have us. It wasn't, or to have him. It definitely wasn't
It's
his.
mine.
Wait, no, that wouldn't be my choice for you guys to be together.
Well, you said if you had your choice.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Right,
I mean,
that's
I
what-
mean, I think
yes.
any kid would.
That's what I'm. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's
right.
exactly my point. So you know, but yet it's sometimes the way parents handle it is they are left with a bill that they had no, you know, again, choice in, right?
You mean kids?
Go ahead.
Is they're left with a bill?
Yeah.
But the kids are left with the bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're left with the emotional bill to pay for something they didn't order off the menu, they didn't make the reservation, they didn't, you know, and yet here they didn't order the wine.
Asher, when I got married, you know, you're the guy, so maybe it won't roll out like this, but I had my mom and dad walk me down, and then I had my stepmom and stepdad walk each other down right behind us, which was nice.
That's
Aw.
awesome. That's great.
That's
It was
really
really
cute.
nice. Like
Oops.
they were all like, "What?" And I was like,
Sorry.
"That's what we're gonna do." And they were like,
I think that's
"Okay."
I
great.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that. You know, put that. Remember that.
Yeah.
Well,
if,
it's interesting being a step family. You know, I'm a stepmom. Asher, I have triplet stepchildren. They were 5 when I met their dad, and they're 22 now. But when we got married, when they were 12, we had a whole part of the ceremony where they were involved in the wedding ceremony and becoming a family. And, you know, I sort of made pledges and oaths to them in the same way I was making a pledge and an oath to their father. And it was, you know, we've tried very hard to do what I think your mom and dad said they did, which is instead of what's best for Asher, we had what's best for Jake, Emma, and Cole. But same theory. And, you know, I think for listeners hearing this and seeing Asher and hearing Asher and reading his chapter in the book and his interviews, you know, that's what comes from truly what's best for blank, whatever your child or children's name is, and actually living it. And they're still living it today. They have 9 houses apart, right? I assume that had something to do with what's best for Asher.
It did.
Yeah, I didn't want to live next to Ben just because.
We're gonna see what happens when he goes to college, and if this
And then
thing's
I'm like,
really
I'm outta
working.
here.
Right.
For some families, you need to have a little bit more space.
Right.
Right. And
No, because
so
I
that's
still have the other two.
What?
Oh,
Still have the other two.
she has my kids.
Yeah.
And
She's
so
the second mom.
even when
Right.
Asher, but no, the space. Gab, you're absolutely right. Like some people did need space, and I think I don't know if like we tried things in the beginning, and it was just too soon to do it. Right. And we used the example of the Thanksgiving where we went to Montana. And it was our first sort of family, quote unquote, modern family, happy divorce vacation. And it was too early.
wanted to kill each other after like the first 2 days. We're like, "Ah."
It was too early. But
Who else was there?
My sister and her family, my parents, you guys,
me and Nadia were dating,
Okay.
then my husband
and Asher.
and Asher.
Oh, so it was truly the whole. Yeah.
Yes. So it,
The whole
it
kid-
got to the point where we were like, "Ah,
I remember Nikki saying to me, I'll never forget this, she goes, "We're never doing this again."
we're never doing it.
Wait,
This was, you
Never
were
say never.
probably 6.
I don't even
mean,
know.
Mimi was still there.
No,
so.
it was
Amanda. We went to Montana. And it was,
I know, but it wasn't for the.
No, it was for Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. And
Oh,
but,
yeah,
but
I wasn't really paying attention.
no, yeah,
No, you were just outside fishing.
you weren't paying attention. What we're talking
No,
about?
to what you guys were just talking about.
Shocker.
Oh, shocker,
Uh,
16-year-old.
But the point, the thing is though, we got through it, right? And it was another.
It wasn't
I
that
wouldn't.
long, and we just tried it again.
I wouldn't call it a win, but it was
It
a.
was a win. We just
No one
realized-
killed each other.
Yeah. Don't kill each other.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
But the
No.
point is what you were saying is that it was too, or I don't know if we would have done it right or would have been right for us to move 9 houses apart in the beginning. Right?
Right.
It's one of those things that was almost like an evolution or rite of passage. It might work. I mean, I think that we're not here to say that it wouldn't or who knows, but I think it was the right time at the right place to do it. And in the beginning, we needed that, space. And so, here we are.
And I will say the best thing about living 9 houses down was the first day
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys moved down the street.
The first night.
First night you spent the night there. You rode your little scooter thing down to the house, and you popped up in the morning, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Before we went to school.
"This is the greatest thing ever."
I said, "Morning, Mom."
"Morning, Mom. This is the greatest thing ever." And I was like,
I said, but I didn't even tell you guys I was coming over.
"No." That's when we started calling you the creeper.
Yeah.
You never know when Asher's going to pop up.
Yep.
So how do Susan, how do you tell the difference between the colloquial "I'm doing it best for the kids" and the real "I'm doing it best for the kids"? Right? I mean, I think everybody can. I could have seen myself in the beginning if we hadn't found a different path. Telling what was best for Asher was to, let him know what I thought his mom was, or that he shouldn't be around Chad because whatever story I told Chad, and so it's used as sort of an excuse. Is there sort of a way you see through that, or you can, and Gab, you can answer that too.
Yeah. Well, my first clue, and it comes out all the time when we're talking about the children, is when a parent continually uses the I. I want more time with my child. I need more time. I can't be apart from him that long. I don't want to miss Christmas with him. And it's always I. It is never about what is best for the child. It will be turned to that, but it always raises a little bit of a bell when you hear a parent putting everything into phrases of what they want or what I want, and not from, I know my child, even that conversation, I know my child and I don't believe that they will do well apart from me because of this, and this. He's experienced anxiety and separation, issues in the past, but it's, I want more time with my child or something like that. And that comes up fairly often. And Gab, I think, could probably speak to this because I know judges, when they hear that particular phrase, I want this or I want that, when it comes to the children, I've had judges tell me that that's their biggest red flag when it comes to someone being more concerned about their their own wants, and the parenting plan being about them, not about the child.
That's interesting.
Uh-oh, you're
Yeah,
muted
you're
again.
muted again.
Still muted.
Still muted. We'll just, we'll dance.
There, I
We're
can
still
do this.
muted. You're still
Yeah.
muted. You're
Okay,
still
you can
muted.
hear me now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing is where you start to talk to your client about what kind of parenting they think would be good, and they start pivoting the conversation about, so if I have this many days, I pay this much. I mean, when it's right. I mean, I have those conversations all the time. You're like, well, let's not talk about the money, even though, yes, it's going to impact, but like first, let's figure out what you want, and then we'll talk about the money afterwards. That's a very big red flag, and that pops up all the time.
Yeah.
So, in other words, your custody really should not be dictated by how much it's going to cost you or how much you're going to get. And oftentimes, that is a big motivator for people, unfortunately.
Interesting. Asher,
Yes.
you are free. Thank you. We don't go past an hour.
You're not really free.
Well, you're not free.
Not free,
Yeah.
free.
You're just
Hey,
free
look,
from
we
doing
just
this.
go out
And-
and
And
I
and-
have
the first
the
thing he's going to
car
say
keys.
is, can I go do this today?
yeah. You're on camera when you do that, by the way. Oh.
That's what
Because
I'm
not
like,
really
he wants the car.
How am I gonna get home? Anyways, this
You
is
live
what.
9 houses down. She could drop you off.
Anyways, this is what we deal with.
Just kidding.
But thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So this
Yeah.
is gonna be. It was so important for us to do
No,
it
you can't leave. You're still on screen.
that we. Can you guys stop it? Let me just
No.
wrap this up before you.
No,
Uh,
I'll break your finger.
that we're gonna do this in 2 parts. Next week, I think we're gonna hopefully have Kate and Susan's girls and boy on.
I have a girl. Kate has a boy.
Kate is a boy,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody else to talk about again from other people's perspective and get it straight from the kid's mouth. And I know this probably wasn't easy or fun, but it wasn't too
okay.
bad.
I mean, who doesn't want to hang out with their parents and 2 attorneys at night? I mean, what could be more fun than that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Gab, tell everybody where we don't have your social stuffs on, because as you can see by the ghetto ass little graphic I put over your name, where can people find you?
So you can head over to GabrielleHartley.com. If you're looking for some great insight into divorce wellness, co-parenting, finance, go to the Better Apart blog. Every week, a new article comes out by amazing divorce professionals, including our Happy Divorce from all over the world. And check out all the resources that are there. GabrielleHartley.com.
And they can get your social media on.
It's right there. It's Gabrielle Hartley ESQ. If you want to follow me on Insta or on Twitter, I think it's Gab Hartley ESQ. Everything's right there. LinkedIn is Gabrielle Hartley. But yeah, it's a pleasure. And Asher, I'm really so happy to meet you. And you're a great kid.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.
I'll keep them.
And the book again is Better Apart, by a real author.
Positive way to separate. And by the way,
What's
Asher,
that?
when I went to law school, I said the last thing I'm ever going to do is family law. So
There you
turned
go.
out-
Look at you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, another lesson in life: never, never, never say never.
Never.
Right?
Yes.
And then, of course, Susan Guthrie, as always, a pleasure. But thank you so much, you guys. And Asher, no, I'm not giving out your social media. No. Thank you for joining. Do you want to say anything on your way out the door to your mom or dad while you have us?
About what?
Immunity.
Anything.
Complete immunity. We have 2 lawyers right here
No.
who will.
Do you not want to say like You two are mean. You two are great.
You guys
I
are
love you
fakes.
guys.
Great, I love you.
You guys are fakes.
You're
This happy
fake.
divorce is nothing happy about it.
Oh, well, I wasn't gonna say that. But now that you said it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Next week, part 2 of part dos. Thank you everybody for watching. And again, if you need to get in touch with Gabrielle, it's GabrielleHartley.com.
Yeah, GABRIELLE.
And and Gab, thank you very much. Good luck to the kitty.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
and
Kate
Kate's
wasn't with
mom.
us tonight because was it hers?
No, it's her mom's.
It was
Her
Kate's mom.
mom's. They had to put down her cat. So thoughts and prayers. Thank you guys very much. And we will talk to you next week. I don't know how to end this thing. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Gonna leave.
Goodbye.
Thank you.